Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children whose parents don't pay attention to what they Google. When I was but a wee lass growing up in the middle world, we weren't quite old world, we weren't quite new world, but we all had comb-overs and drove Cadillacs. When I was but a wee lass growing up in the middle world, on the weekends, my father on the weekends, he would wake up early and he would procure from his Canadian-made cabinets, his Canadian-made cast iron frying pan. He would then take his Canadian-made cast iron frying pan, he would set it on his Canadian-made stove, and using Canadian-made propane, he would heat his Canadian-made cast iron frying pan. And then, when his Canadian-made cast iron frying pan was nice and hot because of the Canadian-made propane coming out of his Canadian-made stove, he would cook for us Canadian bacon. And then one day, the Canadian Bacon Corporation up and moved to Vermont. And we couldn't get Canadian bacon no more. No, we could only get Canadian-style bacon. And what's the difference between Canadian bacon and Canadian-style bacon, you ask? Well, I don't know. What's the difference between a nice Chardonnay and carbonated horse piss? Now, the reason I told you that story was to let you know that I like stories. I've always liked stories. I've been fond of them ever since I was but a wee lass growing up in the middle world. We weren't quite old world, we weren't quite new world, but we wore tight pants and fucked the babysitter. I got a story I'd like to tell you now. It's a short story. No, you know what? It's a long story. Actually, it's a short story, but I'm gonna make it a long story, because I like stories. I've always liked stories, ever since I was but a wee lass growing up in the middle world. We weren't quite old world, we weren't quite new, etc. Now I have this friend, this geographically convenient friend, goes by the name of Johnny Welfare. And you see, about a year ago, Johnny Welfare got himself his welfare check. And Johnny Welfare, because he's a responsible adult, took his welfare check and went and bought himself some cheap weed and applesauce. And then his sexual interest, Patty Part-Time, got home from her 4-hour shift of slinging lattes, grabbed some of Johnny Welfare's welfare money, and went and bought herself a bottle of whiskey, 'cause she's a responsible adult. And Johnny Welfare, he got himself nice and high off his cheap weed and applesauce, and Patty Part-Time, she got herself nice and drunk on her welfare whiskey, and the two of them decided to fuck. Oh me, oh my, calamity and woe, they don't have any condoms. Unfortunately, neither one of them is sober enough to go to the store and buy some, so they'll just have a child instead. Now how the fuck is that not a crime against humanity? It's like these stupid little whores that go to the bar and they're all, oh, you know, I just want a nice man to look after my kid. First off, you stupid bitch, unless you procreated with a barnyard animal, you don't have a kid, you have a child. Secondly, if alls you want is a man to raise your child, maybe you should have found the fucking man before you had the child. Did that thought ever cross your mind? And these children are going to grow up socially retarded with no sense of self-worth, and they're going to get bullied, and they're going to get picked on, and they're not going to understand why Santa bought everybody a Wii and all they got was a pair of socks. And you're going to turn around and you're going to blame the internet, and you're going to blame the bullies, and you're going to blame keeping score during soccer games. Hell, you'll blame Pokemon. But not once will you ever look in the mirror and say, before I forced something into existence without his consent, was I capable of looking after it? Fuck you! Now, ideally, what I would like to do is I would like to take these people, and I would like to take them before they have their child, and I would like to take their hand, and I would like to sing as we wander down the yellow brick road to the abortion clinic, and they can sit there, and they can listen to my born-again Satanist friend play some wicked rock guitar, and then they can get their little dealie done, and they can save some child growing up in a world of suffrage and hate. But I can't do that because the pro-life burnt down the abortion clinic. So now me and my born-again Satanist friend, we got a lot of free time on our hands, and we spend a significant amount of that time in coffee shops. What are we doing in coffee shops? We're drinking coffee, black like our souls. And one day, while we were doing this very thing, maybe my born-again Satanist friend was eating a bagel. Likely he was. Born-again Satanists are a lot like Jews when it comes to bagels. It's ironic. I don't know what ironic means. So we're sitting there and we're drinking our black coffees, black like our souls. And he's probably eating a bagel, because much like the Jews, he loves him his bagels. And I'm explaining to him that if corn already tasted like nacho cheese, Doritos would save millions of dollars on seasoning, and they would be able to pass those savings down to you, the distributor. And my born-again Satanist friend, he took a little bite of his bagel and he drank some of his coffee, his black coffee, black like his soul. And he said to me, he said, Jesus, only he didn't call me Jesus, because apparently that's not my fucking name. I got into this habit when I was but a wee lad living in the middle country. We weren't quite old country. We weren't quite blah, 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 fucking blah. And I got into this habit where I would write my name in my underwear so that I didn't forget it. My name, not my underwear. Who forgets their underwear? Are you retarded? And if I look at my underwear, right in my underwear, it says that my name is Jesus. But apparently that's not my name. So logically, the only conclusion I can come to is that somebody named Jesus is breaking into my house, stealing my underwear, and replacing it with his own. This concerns me. The last thing this world needs is some crazy little underwear thief running around thinking he's Jesus. So my born-again Satanist friend, he's eating his bagel, and what the hell was I talking to? Oh, yeah, Doritos and Monsanto and Fappy, and how we can pass the savings on to you, the distributor. And my born-again Satanist friend, he looks at me and he says to me, not Jesus? That's the dumbest thing I've heard since I volunteered at that school for special needs children. And I looked at my born-again Satanist friend and I said, your face is a school for special needs children. And I left. And I was on my way home, and I'm making my way, and my buddy One-Eyed Joe, it's an ironic nickname, like calling a fat boy Slim. My buddy One-Eyed Joe, he says to me, hey there, not Jesus. What are you doing? And I says, well, my friend One-Eyed Joe, I'm doing the backstroke. And he says to me, hey, yeah, don't mean to be rude, but don't most people do that in a swimming pool? And I says to him, your face is a swimming pool. And I kept on backstroking, and I was so intensely focused on the rhythm of my backstroke that I didn't notice the light was red, and I got hit by a car. And this lady jumps out of the car, and she's all, oh my God, are you okay? And I was like, your face is okay. And she's like, oh, are you hurt? And I was like, your face is hurt. And she was like, I don't know what that means. And I was like, hey, I just got hit by a fucking car. How about you cut me some slack? I like stories.